Namaskar, Adab, Sat Sri Akal. This is DN Srivastava, and you are watching the DN News. We welcome you all to this special episode of our regular meaningful debate program, Blunt Talk. In Blunt Talk, we shall discuss today all about the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. Today is the 35th day of the war, and with the passage of time, we witness heavy shelling and bombardment with missile attacks and use of high-end weapons, including hypersonic missiles and javelin missiles from either side. As the war is lingering on, the fruitful results as anticipated by Russia at the start of war is becoming more and more unpredictable, devastating, dangerous to life and property of common men of Ukraine and Russia, apart from the life of soldiers fighting the war. Why is this war is really going out of my head? Some say it is out of provocation. Some say it's a war for ego fight. Some say it's actually the result of some hard work of US, the NATO and the European Union in this direction. We shall know all about these and the actual reasons of this war and the probable ways to end this war in this program. Joining us in this program is Dr. D.K. Giri, an expert, political analyst, and an expert in international relations. Dr. Sri Prakash is an international relations expert and is also expert in Russian and Chinese affairs. And with that, we have Air Vice Marshal Mr. P.K. Srivastava, who is a defense expert, and Ms. Sabina Indrajit, a senior journalist, a third-generation journalist, was a special correspondent in Times of India, and she's also a member, also a vice president of International Federation of Journalists. So now we start with the program, and we would like to first welcome all guests, Dr. D.K. Giri, Dr. Sri Prakash, Mr. Prakash Srivastava, and Madam Sabina. Welcome all of you on the DN News. I would first like to start with what could be, Dr. Giri, if I start with you, what could be the basic reasons of this war? I want to know, because till now the concept is not clear in the minds of the general common people of this country. Why this war came up? What was the reason? Everyone was keeping quiet. Even Russia was not coming, had no problem with anyone. And suddenly this war started. How it came up, sir? Can you just put some light on it? Sir, unmute, sir. Unmute.
Yeah, as you said, there are different theories doing the round. The prominent or the front running one is Putin's thinking about his country. He believes that the vivisection of USSR was the biggest tragedy of this century, or the last century rather, and he is perhaps wanting to reunite them, the republics that they broke away from former Soviet Union. And the second is his interpretation of history, and he believes that Ukrainians are Russians. You know, they were from the same stock, same race, and even Lenin had said that if we lose Ukraine, we lose our head. So they have the same history, and Ukrainian should not have been separate from the Russians. So that is one kind of history of identities. The other reason is the Ukraine is the second biggest country among the republics, and it is rich. It is immediate neighbor of Russia, and it was being seduced Americans and NATO. And he thought if he let that happen, then Americans will be at his doorstep. So he wanted to avoid that. So a couple of reasons. It is really Putin's war. The drivers that I mentioned, his understanding of history, his understanding of geopolitics and security, and critical importance of Ukraine being the buffer between the US bloc and Russia, that he didn't want to lose. That is why when Ukraine was really not being bullied or being browbeaten by Russia, he invaded them. So it is purely Putin's war.
Okay. Dr.
Sorry,
Sriprakash, if yes, 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 ma'am.
may I ask Professor Giri one question which my friends from Europe have been asking? Could one of the reasons of the timing of this war have to do with US's disaster in Afghanistan? The timing that Putin chose to launch this war? That's one of the theories that's also doing the rounds about the timing, that.
Yes, well, the Americans withdrew from Afghanistan last year, and it has been quite a while now. I will not put too much on it, but certainly America in world perception became weaker after this messy withdrawal from Afghanistan, without putting up a robust, alternative security framework in Kabul. So it was not a very organized pull out of Afghanistan after spending so much money and so much energy in Afghanistan for so long. To suddenly withdraw was a kind of a reflection of Americans' weakness. So Putin may have grabbed that perception in his favor, but it is Putin's own fear of insecurity if Ukraine were to go to the NATO bloc. And as I said, his interpretation of history, he thinks that he could reunite perhaps the Soviet Union. One leader broke it up, Gorbachev, famous Gorbachev, and he thinks I am the one to reunite it. So that is his self-embraced mission for Soviet Union.
Yeah, Dr. Sriprakash, I would like to know the same thing, same question from you also, the same thing, that how it started, why it started, and what were the reasons behind it. And also, as Dr. Giri says, that this Putin wants to rejoin the all disintegrated partners back to the USSR. Is it possible?
You see, first thing I would like to point out that the whole of the Russian parliament has passed a resolution making the two regions of Ukraine, recognizing them as independent republics. Putin is, of course, the head of Russia, but Russia is now an elected constituent republic, a democratic republic after the Soviet Union. That was the fall of the Soviet Union, meant that a parliamentary republic was built in Russia, which is based on elections, based on adult franchise, like it is in India. So, I mean, if India has to go to war against Pakistan or China, we can't say it is Modi's war. I mean, it is the whole of the Indian nation which takes a decision to go to war. And there are several aspects to this. It's been going on for some time. The whole effort of Ukraine to build itself as a nation by throwing out the Russian language. See, there have been repeated laws in Ukraine, and the latest one was in 2019, which made Ukraine a compulsory national language and which said that Russian would no longer have the status of an official language. No. So it really means that the eastern part of the Ukraine, which is predominantly Russian speaking, is being disenfranchised from all the facilities that Ukraine has to offer, whether it is admission to schools, colleges, or it is appearance in exams for government services or courts of law and so on. So, and also it was, the law said, several laws have said that the state would be obliged only to promote Ukrainian in the television, media, in publications, in courts, and so on and so forth. So there is a history to this which is provocative to the whole of the Russian people, not just to Mr. Putin. And then therefore, you see this question of today eastern and western Ukraine That is actually should be also taken into account when you are thinking of why Russia could go to war. See, it's not just that, it's not easy for any country to decide to go to war. Today, war creates an international reaction, a worldwide reaction. But obviously, the Russian government and the Russian people are confident that they will be able to achieve those goals they have in Ukraine. And primarily, it is to separate Eastern Ukraine from Western Ukraine. And that is what they are hoping to do militarily also through this war. And they
So,
did that mainly, they took this risk because, you see, I will give you an example, the Cuban Missile Crisis of the early 1960s. When the Soviet Union was placing missiles in Cuba, the United States told them we'll do exactly that. They invaded Cuba. There was Bay of Pigs invasion. They said that you better withdraw these missiles, otherwise there'll be a nuclear war. It's almost scene for scene, This is what happened. So naturally, any country wouldn't like hypersonic missiles placed next to its borders if they can help it. And these are huge military powers, so they can decide that before something really bad happens to them, better make sure that there's demilitarization of Ukraine. Better make sure that Ukraine is not a base for NATO missiles, which
yes.
they cannot stop otherwise.
So, should we take it as Ukraine was trying to be more powerful than Russia, and Russia was actually having some kind of fear about Ukraine
Ukraine
being more
wanted
powerful?
Ukraine wanted to move into the US camp for ensuring its security. And if they had done that, then US would have placed many more offensive weapons in Ukraine, which Russia thought is going to be a very big threat to their security. So they
Okay.
are preventing that. They're preventing that from happening.
So NATO and European Union together coming in with Ukraine makes Ukraine more powerful than Russia?
Yes, it makes it a threat to Russia.
Threat to Russia. But can we, Mr. Prakash Srivastava, can we say that together NATO, European Union, and US will be more powerful than Russia?
Actually, to throw some light on this, if you permit me, I like to trace the the genesis of the conflict from a different perspective.
Yes.
And I am actually compelled to quote here John Mersheimer, who wrote a very beautiful article and gave a lot of presentations when the NATO expansion was happening eastward, which was a tacit commitment to Gorbachev and to the then USSR that there will be no eastward expansion. So from 12 countries, they became 30 countries. That is one simple point, and Ukraine was supposed to be the tipping point as per John Mersheimer also, that if it be a Western fault, if we try to put Ukraine on this side. That is one of the perspectives. Another perspective is, which I have been taught in my strategy schools while learning the military science and warfare studies, that these days we don't fight war for land occupation. It fails all the time, because then the guerrilla warfare takes over and the local terrain does not let you really capture it. You cannot govern it. So you see this in Vietnam, you see this in Iraq, you see this in most recently in Afghanistan. So thinking that Putin, who being a realist, I'll profile him as a realist, would like to take this kind of risk that I'll go as an occupying force. No, it was for the economic territory. So let me bring in the economic territory and dollarization and the IMF and how much trade we do dollars and how much trade we do in euros, how much we do in yuan and other currencies, and why the currency becomes a very central point for tomorrow's war or future war. Then you also mentioned about if we have so many weapons of mass destruction, then is it really required? Because you need few of them to destroy a whole of the humanity. So we always called it MAD, mutually assured destruction.
Yes.
It's only a great deterrent, like a surface tension.
Yes.
It keeps things in a kind of equilibrium. You need some equilibrium. And when the world becomes unipolar, you have more and more conflicts. You remember the days when world was not unipolar, it was bipolar, there were less and less conflicts. So if you really ask me strategically, where are you trying to move? The world is trying to move from being a unipolar entity to a bipolar entity, and some kind of alignment, which Biden has also mentioned in few of his speech, whatever he dishes out to media, that yes, there will be a new change world order, which will be led by America. So that shows the American ambition. If now I transpose the American ambition and Biden's going down approval ratings and the elections which are going to happen in US in the recent future, then a war becomes a necessary tool. So whose war is it? So why you how can you provoke a tiger? You provoke the tiger,
Yes.
let him march around, you predict that he will invade, and he invades. It is what we call it, you decided it to happen.
Yes.
So it's a decision that yes, war must take place. So if war happens, what happens? If war happens, then the guy becomes even more interested in coming onto my fold, and his determination goes high. Anyway, this is the topic which can we discuss, but I just want to give a window. And here I say, if you really want to follow all the war strategists and our philosophers who talked about war, like including Sun Tzu, he always said that you want to corner an enemy, you give him a golden bridge at the back. You give him a escape route. You let him go out from somewhere honorably, which was also told by Macron, the French president. We are not offering anything of that type as of now to Mr. Putin. Putin has been demonized. That means, as far as the war is concerned, there are many dimensions in a fight war. We all know it. The first dimension being the information warfare, propaganda warfare. There has to be a villain. In any kind of movie, theater, or theatrics, you need a villain. Villain is a very important thing. So you create a villain. So Putin is a villain. This battle has been won over by the press or the media or the Western Bloc.
Putin
Create a hero. Create a hero.
Sir, Putin is a villain, or he has been made to be a villain?
Yeah, he has been made a villain. At the moment, let me finish this. And of course, you need a hero and a victimhood syndrome. Zelensky is already a hero because in the recent Pew survey, he emerges as a person who is the most popular person in US, 72% of rating. And Biden has less than 50%. Okay, so you created a hero, you created a villain, and there's a war. Very good situation. Okay, now let's look at the objectives. The war is there.
Yes.
Are we moving towards peace? If you're moving towards peace, please remember, you ought to remember Sun Tzu or these philosophers. He said, give him a golden bridge at the back. Give him a peace, respectful way to disengage. Where is that way coming out? Are you seeing in any kind of communications? No. It has been utterly, and if you allow me to say in the Amul's language, butterly denied. You cannot have this. If you cannot have this, then what do you have? You have escalation ladder going on. Now, a lot of people say, what was his objectives? Let's read out the objectives of Putin, which media has narrated, and there's a narrative of various kinds. The narrative which is most popular and which to some degree Putin has accepted in his speech, first is Ukraine must not join NATO.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
To a degree, he has succeeded in this objective. Because now Zelensky is saying, after the battering,
I will not join
I'll
NATO.
talk about Zelensky's role. If you give me a little time, I'll talk about it a little later after I finish this part. So Zelensky is now, he's saying that yes, I will not join NATO given certain conditions that I am secure. Okay, that's a point of diplomatic debate.
Yes.
Second was demilitarization. Demilitarization, all the energy, 25% of the energy is under the control of Russian forces today, of Ukraine. Energy is the first thing we need to fight a war. Fuel dumps, they are destroyed and very little fuel is left in the country, and next one cannot come because I have already blocked the Sea of Azov and Black Sea. From the land route coming is absolutely difficult. No fly zone has not been declared. From air route, it cannot come so much of fuel. So, okay, demilitarization and 1100 plus in military installations, known and hidden and through intelligence, have already been precision struck. So they are all demilitarized. So if you have that, that is to a degree achieved. Come to the third, denazification. Who were the Nazis in this case? The ultranationalists who were in Azov battalion, they were known as, and they were also sanctioned by the UN. Now, this group of people, what happened to them? They are now almost vanishing. The Mariupol battle is exactly for that. Exactly for that. They will not leave. But remember, in this war, as a war observer and a war fighter, no war, never ever any aggressive party has provided 9 human corridors for the people to go out.
Yes.
They have not struck railroads. They have not struck railroads or the road network.
Yes.
That means those who want to leave the war zone, they can leave.
Yes.
Okay, that's a very, very big point. Now I'll come to Zelensky's role. I am Zelensky. I'm the president of this country. Death and destruction of my people, destruction of my homeland, destruction of my property is to say against that is my first responsibility and duty. Everyone follows a politics. See, politics is a sum total of national fear. I fear some people because they are powerful. I am not so powerful, including myself in India. We never says, and I have some national interest. I combine them and then take a course of action. That is why we are neutral. We are calling ourselves neutral. We were never neutral in our lifespan, because earlier only Russia supported us. We used to call ourselves non-aligned. What kind of non-alignment? Nobody was aligned with us. Did you ever get any support in any of the wars from US? Did you get any support in any of our wars from Europe? No. We were a marketplace. I'm buying items from you, but I know as a country I have great dependence on each one of the fighters, each one of the conflict leaders in this. So for me, as a government or as a national foreign policy, creator, holder, or state maker, what I have on my platter, everyone is visiting me. Today itself, there are so many visits. Everyone has got his own agenda. Taking a posture in this is very difficult. It is not the same what we did earlier. So the sum total is, we don't wish a nuclear war, but I would still remind the world and the peacemakers, please remember, Hitler did not have a nuclear button under his command and control, so he committed suicide. But this guy today has it. It is for the humanity. It is for the global world order, that we have to little bit forget about the financial part of it and go into the human element and say, no, we want to stop the war. I don't find, I'm observing this war going on this 37 day.
Yes.
I don't find anything of that kind going on. If you say in one sentence, I want peace, second sentence, you say, give me more stingers, give me more javelin.
It is more of provoking.
So you are provoking, and you're trying to paint him as not a statesperson. You're trying to paint him as some kind of devil. That would be a mistake.
Yes.
That would be a mistake. On this note, I will rest my case for the time being. Wait for your next question.
I'll come back to you, sir, because there are a lot of other things to be talked about. But I will come to you, Dr. Giri and Dr. Sriprakash also. I want to know, UN itself is a peacekeeping agency. And when we talk about UN, the representatives of UN who are talking about, it looks like more provocative. All the statements are provocative. It's like instigating someone for coming up for war more furiously. Because initially when it started, I have seen, and you all must have watched the television channels also, that the Russians used to have very mild attacks, minor attacks. They wanted to terrify, and then they were just anticipating some kind of surrender from the Zelensky side, but never it happened. And when ultimately when US President Joe Biden came to Poland, then this aggressiveness you have seen. What kind of aggressiveness Russia is now showing? is not thinking about residential areas also, not thinking about human lives also. So this has become more. So I would discuss that UN as a peacekeeping force, the role of UN. And before that, I would like to talk to Dr. Ms. Sabina Indrajit about Indian perspective, what you think India would achieve if this war continues, or what you think India would lose if this war continues or the war ends. What would be the scene? What would be the situation of Indian economy? What would be the situation of Indian societies and everything?
Well, firstly, let me just start by saying something which many of us Indians were talking about on your
Yes.
first question about the war. I think the question first, which I would like to put across, is that what has India's stand been? How have we Indians taken that stand at the UN? We are the largest democracy in the world, and the fact that we abstained from the US led moved resolution in the UN was at the outset clearly a disappointment, because we're talking about an invasion, we're talking about a war. However, the other side of it, where a lot of us are debating it, it's the fact that the country as such, every country would look at its own national perspective, would look at its own national interest. Now, where I feel is there seemed to be a bit of an upbeat mood vis-a-vis the handling of or India's position on this, the other side of it, that it gave priority to its citizens, it gave priority to its nationals and brought them back, which every country would do. And perhaps this has been the case would have been the case with any other country. Insofar as you're saying about the impact, so the impact, I think, for our government, for the Modi-led government, it seems to be a thumbs up, where he seems to have reached out to the people, to the society, and said, look, my concern is bringing back my students. So here he's trying to do is, as my friend Srivastava is talking about media and media, propaganda and all. I think that's kind of worked. Previous governments did the same vis-a-vis when it was evacuation from Kuwait and all, but they never really tom-tommed it. But here in this case, it is being done. So here at the, let's say, the normal Indian level, it is that, yes, we have taken the right stand, though many of us who would not agree with it, because as a democracy, we should have, had some kind of a say in this. The ones who abstained at the UN Security Council were the ones which were authoritarian countries. Insofar as we're already facing the economic brunt of it. I mean, oil prices are obviously going to rise further, right? So we are talking about it impacting inflation, it impacting our food prices. But there is also another interesting aspect which I read, and I'm not an economist or an agriculturist, but I'm made to understand that vis-a-vis agriculture sector, perhaps the war is going to help us in the sense that Ukraine is supposed to be one of the largest exporters of wheat, maize, and perhaps India would step in during this time. And of course, I'm not venturing into how the war is going to end, but I think as India is taking, it claims to take a neutral stand, there is some kind of, let's say, to me personally, there is one upside that I see, with China becoming more aggressive as our neighbor. I think one of the compulsions for us not to rub Russia the wrong side gives me some kind of hope that we would be able to reach out to Russia, maybe a quid pro quo later, in case China becomes more aggressive. That's the way I look at it. I mean, the international experts could, counter it or maybe agree with it.
Can I?
Okay. Okay. Yes, Mr. Dr. Sri Prakash,
Yes.
you want to say something, but before that, I also want to ask you one thing. Uh, what would be the harm if Zelensky would have surrendered? Because if he has not surrendered, or if he has not said no to the war, lost so much of lives, and the entire country is finished, almost finished. There's nothing there left on the ground. What would, what harm would be there if Zelensky would have surrendered? And why US is not coming in between to settle the issue with a point of view of peacekeeping? Why are they provoking and instigating by giving arms and ammunitions to fight, which means they want the fight to be lingered on? What is the exact situation, sir?
See, Zelensky has come to power. He has won the elections on a platform of joining the European Union, and he got a big majority in the elections when he was elected as president. So he simply cannot go back on his lifetime goal ambition that has been declared, that Ukraine should join the European Union. Now, joining the European Union also means that Russia will not provide Ukraine with security, so he has to go to NATO for security. That is the corollary of going to European Union, is that you also have to join NATO. Because European Union is not a military organization. They cannot give you security. And once you join European Union, of which Russia is not a part, then obviously Russia is not going to give you security. So who is left? Only NATO. So you see, Zelensky is in a dilemma, because Zelensky thought that once the war starts, NATO will come running to his aid, which has not happened. And which has not happened for a very good reason, that, in my opinion, the people of Europe today don't want war. Russians have only attacked Ukraine. They have not alienated the people of Europe, unlike the Nazis, who had occupied France, who occupied Holland, who had bombed England. So all the European people were against the Nazis. Today, that is not the case, and NATO leadership also knows that. So they cannot start a war against Russia, where the Russian people are mobilized, but the European people are not mobilized against Russia. Secondly, I would like to say another thing, that you see, India's stand is in keeping historically. Whenever Soviet Union has intervened in other countries, it did so in Hungary, it did so in Czechoslovakia, it has done so in Georgia also. India has taken a stand that, in keeping with our own interests and in keeping with the realities of the international political, geopolitical, strategic order, we cannot openly oppose Russia. They have never done that. It is not at all surprising. I mean, they did not hesitate to take an abstentionist stand in this, because this is, if you look at the records of the Ministry of External Affairs, they'll say, oh, we've been doing this since 1950s. Since the time there was Soviet Union went to Czechoslovakia and Hungary, or even East Germany, they have never said a thing. So why should we say something today? This has been India's traditional policy, and it has served it very well. By the way, it has served it very well, because we have used and relied on the Soviet veto on the Kashmir issue any number of times. We would have been very isolated in the UN, and Kashmir is a very important issue for India. It's not just China today. So, I mean, I think that we must realize that it is concomitant of what has been understood to be India's non-aligned policy. In terms of actual international realities, it has been that Soviet Union is there to support you. Don't do anything. We have not also openly supported Russia. We have abstained. We have said that we want an end to all violence. Even today, Prime Minister Modi has repeated to Foreign Minister Lavrov in his talks, as you can see in the breaking news, that please end all violence in Ukraine. Now, what does that mean? All violence can only end if there is a ceasefire, if the war ends. So we are calling for an end to the war. We are not supporting Russian military action openly. But what we are saying is that, okay, do it through talks, but please end all violence. Our approach is not to solve any conflicts with violence. And that is the best stand to take, in my view.
Dr. Giri, end the war, ceasefire, and all these things we are hearing from countries like India and other small countries. But what about the role of US and the NATO, who are talking about peacekeeping, but they are continuously in the process of provoking Putin for war, for becoming more and more aggressive? What do you think could be the reason behind it? Sir, unmute, sir.
Because a lot of contentious things are coming up. You see, in any incident, there is a fact, there is also interpretation of that fact, and there is a judgment. I would like to talk on the basis of facts, not interpretations or judgment, which is happening. You see, the India's role, let me first join issue with my colleague, Sri Prakash, when he said it's not Putin's war. What I meant was, there are three dictators in the world now, Putin, Xi Jinping, and a North Korean guy. You see, and communist in China, they are single-party democracy. They have been single-party democracy. Now they have become single-man democracy. You see, Putin and Xi Jinping have elected themselves for lives. It does not happen anywhere in the world. So these are dictatorial regimes, really. And talking about our friendship with Soviet Union, this is a facade, this is a kind of an illusion we have been living with. It was created by Nehru by drawing heavy fault lines. Kashmir was his own creation, and then he trapped the whole country into, let's not go into that. And I thought BJP, which is radically different from Congress and attacking day in and day out Nehru's policy and all, they would correct these fault lines. But Modi has also fallen into the same trap. Let's not talk about whether we're non-aligned, whether we needed Soviet Union in the first place. But let's talk about principles. Have we thrown all principles and norms of international politics out the window? If it is national interest, who will define the national interest? National interest also is subjective. A leader defines the national interest, not the whole country. How is it in our national interest to not to oppose a war as the largest democracy? What have we got between China and India? China is 5 times more economically more powerful. It is 5 times militarily more powerful. Only thing we have in China is our politics, our democracy, the norms that we are here. Now we have thrown them all into dust. So if China tomorrow attacks us, we have nothing to say. Why did it attack? We are all forgetting that Ukraine is an independent sovereign country. To hell with Putin's fear or Putin's ambitions. I am worried that independent country, a sovereign country, has been invaded. And it is not first time. Like Sri Prakash said, 1956, Hungary, 1965, Czechoslovakia, 1979, Afghanistan, all invaded by Soviet Union. And now, 2022, Ukraine. It has invaded countries. It has invaded entire Eastern Europe. Until Soviet Union broke out, these East European countries, they never got independence. They came running to America is not, it is not pure, or it is not a pure soul. It is also a country which is following its national interest. See, both the superpower, one former, another existing, third one aspiring. They're all trying to extend their influence. Yeah. So this is superpower rivalry. But why should an independent country fall prey and become a theater of superpower rivalry? That is my concern. That is what India has stood for. But I'm disappointed that India, in the so-called national interest, has thrown all these out of window and has abstained from Russia and confused the entire world where it stands. You see, the talking of provocation, let then China attack Taiwan tomorrow. We attack Pakistan because we have our fear against Pakistan. Is that the norm? Not only United Nations resolutions, just 6 months ago, BRICS passed a resolution. There will be no force will be used in settling disputes. And BRICS, Russia is a member of BRICS. What happened? So no norms. We have forgotten all our norms. Then how would we run this world? You're talking of United Nations. Why does United Nations start today? When you are not adhering to any principle. That is my concern. And the fact of the matter is that Ukraine has been invaded. Why it invaded? This is a matter of speculation. I gave you 3 examples. The Air Marshal gave 3 regions. Prakash can give another 3 regions. That is immaterial. The fact that an independent sovereign country has been invaded,
Okay.
and that should not have happened.
So,
And all other interpretations are meaningless for a norm-loving and a peace-loving and a principle-loving Indian like me. But our country has compromised that, and we are absolutely vulnerable. If, God forbid, we were attacked, we cannot say anything. Other countries can simply abstain. So what do we do?
so
I want the answer to that question.
So, in your opinion, today what India has decided to keep buying things from Russia is not the right thing?
Absolutely not. We are not traders. We are a democracy. We are here. If we are buying some cheap oil, but look at our oil prices today. If Modi has negotiated oil with Russia secretly, and we are buying a lot of oil, where are our prices going? How does it benefit Indians? What is the deal helping? In last 1 week, 6 times the oil prices have increased. Last
Yes,
1 week, 1 week alone. Who is getting the benefit of it? And let me tell you, Morgan too talked about real politics. We all know what real politics is. But who decides that? What is our national interest? Who decides? Putin alone decides what is the national interest in Russia. And he has opposition from within Russia. Forget about putting the opposition leader in jail and poisoning him and all that. But one leader decides the national interest of the whole country. What is my national interest? I don't know. I think our national interest is really standing up for principles. And India is known for its civilization, for its democracy, for the principles that it professes and fails to offer now. That is what India stands for.
But what if Russia gives you very cheap oil and US gives you an oil which costs 3 to 4 times more? So why is it not okay to buy from Russia at this
It's
point?
okay to buy from Russia, but not to support or abstain when Russia invades the rest of the world. That is not. Then we are like any traders. A simple. Forget my characterization. Gujarati trader. You do business. Come whatever happens. Forget about the violence. We are good in business. We should do business.
So as of today, Russia is giving you cheap oil.
Yeah.
$35 a barrel.
Where is it going? What is the oil price today? How many times did it increase?
$120.
We should feel it. No, you should feel it should be subsidized.
Yes.
We are getting cheap oil. Our oil is
exactly
increasing. I mean, there is no connect.
So
and that is no justification in international politics.
Actually, this deal has come up today only, so we have to wait for a day or two. Let us see what happens till the time the new oil comes in.
Not important.
Now,
DN, oil will not reach in a day or two. That will be a very bad assumption.
Yes.
Very bad assumption. But of course, Dr. Giri has his point of view.
I would like to ask Dr. Giri one more question, sir. Just 1 second, I'll come back to you. Dr. Giri, you were just saying that Russia has invaded an independent country, Ukraine.
Yes.
Whereas there is a theory which says that in Ukraine itself, there were nuclear power plants and a lot of chemical weapon plants were being installed there, and there were 22 and more biolabs which were funded by Joe Biden's son. Things like that have also come out, which was a very big threat to Russia, and Russia wanted to take Ukraine into confidence that this thing should not become a security threat to Russia and Ukraine. But when Ukraine did not understand and then did not cooperate with Russia, then Russia had no option but to invade.
That is not. Let me give you another theory.
Okay, the same thing. I will give you an example. If China comes to Nepal and starts installing a nuclear power plant there, will India allow to set up a plant there?
You have no choice. What will India do? China is occupying our territory. India has done nothing. And if there's something in Nepal, China is occupied territory, and we have 18 rounds of discussion and 5 rounds with the other rounds. We have done nothing. Forget about it, what China does. But let me give you another theory. You see, what you said is speculative. Another theory. There is a theory called Russian Imperium. And Russian Imperium consists of three countries, Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Belarus has been gobbled up by Russia. Belarus is now under Russian influence, like Georgia, and the Crimea that it has annexed. So the rest is Ukraine. So Putin was desperate to complete that reunion, at least to three countries. So there is nothing else. It is Putin's absolute desire to integrate, Ukraine back into Russian fold. That is all other theories. There are several theories. But anyway, despite that, my concern, as an Indian, that whether we should keep quiet or be so-called neutral when we did so. Whenever Soviet Union has attacked any other country, we have been neutral. We are not neutral. We have been quiet. You see, Nehru also was made quiet when Soviet invasion took place of Hungary in 1956. Two invasions took place then. Anglo-Suez invasion and Anglo-French invasion in Suez Canal and in Hungary. Nehru was very critical of Anglo-French invasion in Suez Canal, but kept quiet on Hungary because the Russian ambassador came and told at the same time, what is the situation in Kashmir? It was a pure blackmail. But Nehru allowed himself to be blackmailed. Who asked Nehru to take it to United Nations Kashmir issue? That's another discussion. Nobody asked him. Our army was advancing. He said, stop, I'll go to United Nations. Now we don't respect or we don't accept the United Nations resolution. So our foreign policy, we have suffered from our own contradictions and we continue to suffer that. I was hopeful, although I have no brief for BJP, that BJP will perhaps break away from tradition and set it right. But we continue to suffer from the same historical folly of falling prey to Russian blackmail.
I think we should have a separate discussion on Kashmir because
we do. Yes, we do.
Actually, we are falling short in time and we have to wind up very quickly. We'll take the final round of concluding remarks from you. But before that, I would like to ask Mr. Prakash Srivastava, was the nuclear weapon plant and the bio labs in Ukraine that was established in Ukraine threat for Russia? You think Russia was somehow under threat with that, and because of it invaded Ukraine after giving them an opportunity to keep away with it?
I'll now
theory survives? Do you think that theory survives?
I'll speak from military standpoint.
Yes.
For two things. I have not seen in my life of military study or warfare study or international politics, whatever they say from military standpoint, not from moralistic standpoint, not a single country I can find which is moralistic in its attitude, behavior, or aggression. And the greatest democracy which we say, and the way kind of democracy which is being professed by Western Bloc, primarily US, because they have the military power. Today they are the superpower. They have been in Vietnam, they have been in Iraq, and their CIA, which is the most trusted source, said that yes, they are weapons of mass destruction. Their foreign minister went to UN and showed a vial saying that this is the biological weapon which Iraq has. And later on, when the whole country was raised, not a single evidence of that was found. Second thing, when I was listening to one of the USAF, this thing, I visited personally Ukraine n number of times, and all the factories they have there, whether it's Antonov, it's Arsenal, it's Artem, it's Motorsech, or any other plant, or their Luch division, which is the R&D. I'll come to the cultural issue later. What is the cultural issue, which also impacts what Dr. Prakash brought out. It's a very important element in any kind of warfare. But never, ever anything which US has demonstrated that has gone into invaded a country, it was for the purpose of bringing democracy. It only brought in ruin for that country and continued violence in that country. You can say Vietnam has somehow settled down because got bifurcated. Otherwise, if you see, Afghanistan is in turmoil. Iraq, Libya, Yemen, there are a number of examples. All examples all over. So I will refrain myself being a military person or a strategist. We defend the boundaries of the country, and with whatever means the country can provide or whatever means I have. So of course, in that, today you see the financial system is directly and completely under the control of US. Till yesterday, Iran and Venezuela were paria. They're all sanctioned. Now we are listening to this soundbite that they will start buying oil from them to, subdue Russia. How a guy, if you're a moralistic guy who was so bad some time ago, you had sanction, now you're willing to take out a sanction. This is a convenience of the person who rules the world. Okay, now we can buy from here. So my shop has shifted from that place to that place. To survive as a country, like everyone will start talking about inflation, they'll start talking about petrol prices will drive the inflation, and the blame will come on the government of the day. So
Yes.
government of the day wants to keep its sources of oil intact. Even if you do a great deal today, which was told by, let me quote, not our own country, the European country, one of the foreign ministers went on record and said, Europe needs 400 billion cubic meter of gas every year, annually. We import 300 billion cubic meter. 300. Out of that, 170 billion cubic meter comes from Russia. 170. He says, can anybody in real terms really bring me that gas to my doorstep? If you see the gas map which goes from USS Russia to all these countries, it's like our veins in the body. Nord Stream 2 you're blocked, Nord Stream 1 is flowing. And till date, all those fighters are fighting the war and lecturing us on morality and everything, they are still taking the gas. They're NATO countries. They're speaking
Europe is
about
buying from Russia even today.
and their prices, the lot of the manufacturing work has stopped there. Lot of manufacturing work has stopped. The glass companies are crying, those who used to make those fancy chandeliers and all that, because they say the prices of gas have gone up 8 times there. In US, the price of gas has gone double. It was $4 a gallon. Now today it is selling at $8 a gallon. So the price, this will grip. And Biden was trying to, prepare the country, saying that I'm going to put the sanctions. You're going to have these prices going up, and they'll drive other prices. Please bear with me for the sake of morality. Tell me, UNHRC. We talked about UN in a great way. Is UN still relevant? If you want to send peacekeeping force, peacekeeping force is always sent with the agreement of both the contesting parties.
Yes.
It cannot be sent as per the UN regulations. So, of course, the might is right. Everybody knows might is right. If I hold the baton in my hand, I'm right. Today you buy from this shop, tomorrow you buy from that shop. And even if I'm a good Jew trader, I'm worried here whose shop I'm going to buy from. Because in my country, I think the responsibility of my countrymen is on the shoulders of my own leaders. I can only say, as a military man, I have not found anybody a moralist. I have not read anything which was moralistic in this thing. Yes, there are narratives. Today, narrative is against you if you control the press. You see what came in, I'll quote the very recent case. In NYT, we had this thing come up that the whole of India is gripped in in kind of some upheaval because there's a strike all over. It was projected. Did you feel the strike? It was only a few days back. I didn't feel. I was moving to Delhi. So we have narratives, we have people, but at the core of it, I understand we need to keep our national interest, which I'll define in terms of well-being of our own countrymen, to the best I can do. I am a country with lesser resources, more number of people. This I admit. My defense budgets are limited. This we admit. We admit that we are not a great power as compared to China. They can bounce on that. But we have some advantages, and we should make use of advantages to deter or defer the war as far as possible. This is not my war. I don't want to fight this war. So whatever best our leadership can think of, Whether taking a side or not taking a side, that's their outlook, political outlook. But you must take a way so that you keep our country safe. I don't want a Zelensky kind of this thing happening here. And a word about that. When I visited all this, the only thing I found, I was amazed. Sabina ji, you'll be shocked. Each and every DG I met there, they have DG kind of concept running this. These are all public sectors. We want to do some kind of MOU. When I went even from L&T or otherwise, they want their money first. There's no relationship. How do you get the money? It's such a corrupt country in a sense, and everybody has his sons or daughters in Europe. They want to associate with Europe. They think they are more European than anyone else. And that is the dream thing. And also let me mention the constitution. Why Zelensky is bound by the constitution. Chapter 5 of Ukrainian constitution, Article 102, states the president of Ukraine is duty bound to drive the country to become member of NATO and European Union. It is in the constitution. So Zelensky again was doing a duty. He was performing his duty as a president. And of course, he is not a politician. I can't treat him as a politician. He is a politician by accident.
By accident.
And he made his cabinet. He made his cabinet with his own film crew. So that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
Just
I'm scared. Yes, sir.
I wanted to say that when you talked about nuclear, Srivastava, you were asking about it said that it's got the nuclear powers and all. It doesn't. 1994, Ukraine gave a commitment to Russia. The missiles were there. So the fact is, if today Ukraine was empowered with nuclear weapons, Russia would not do it. And on
Sure,
Zelensky,
you're right.
And exactly, and the fact that Srivastava ji, you're right. I mean, I think fortunately, I'm glad Zelensky is not a politician because he stood with his people. He stood with his people, and no matter what, I'm totally in agreement with Giri. I mean, Ukraine is an independent country. Whether it wants to go to NATO, whether it wants to join EU, I mean, you can't stop an independent country. And that's exactly, which is a big problem, I think, in this whole process which has started.
Sabina ji, I must let you.
I mean, it's like Srivastava ji, we'll have China turning around and telling us, no,
don't join Quad. Don't join Quad. Then what happens? Why should we join? Not join
Sabina
Quad.
ji, it's unlike that. We are not on that kind of debating forum. It's unlike that because in 91, when USSR was fragmented, at the behest of who you already know, because you have been reading about this, it was a tacit kind of understanding, not written, was given to USSR that there'll be no eastward expansion of
Yes. Yes, exactly.
It is on
That was
record.
what I was.
Many thinkers, writers, strategists, everybody has talked about it till the time cows can come back home. But no respect was paid to it. There is a Finland model.
But so for that you invade. Then you invade. For that you invade Ukraine. If America did not keep it, come invade America. And invade America. Why Ukraine?
Dr. Giri, I'm not saying for once that I'm propagating or professing war. We are talking about the causes. And when we talk about the causes, we have to be intelligent enough to take every factor into account. We cannot just say,
these are speculations. These are speculation, not causes.
Sir, what does the name NATO suggest, sir?
These are not speculations, sir.
They are speculations. They are points of view, not causes.
Okay, sir.
Nothing justifies any invasion.
Dr. Giri,
so everyone justified. Everyone justified, not only Putin. Even a democratic country like US.
But Srivastava, you are quoting US, but one wrong does not make the other one right. It is US are not discussing US today. We are discussing Russian invasion.
US has done several wrongs. What I am trying to tell my countrymen here, please do not engage yourself by taking sides in this war anytime. Hold your horses. Sometimes silence is worthy of millions.
Dr. Giri, I want to ask you one thing. What is the full form of NATO? What does the name suggest?
North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
Then why did it came to East?
Yeah. Why did the Eastern people join it?
No,
So let's listen. Srivastava Sahab, we are not discussing today American
That's
policy.
okay.
We are not discussing NATO. We are discussing Russia-Ukraine war.
We have to discuss.
Talk about it.
Sir,
You are
will discuss
justifying
NATO.
Russia's action
We
by
will discuss
condemning
NATO.
USA. That is
We
what
will-
I am not doing.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Saab, discussion has to center around US and NATO because they have the key to stop this war.
You see,
Yes.
then I'll tell you,
Actually,
respect Srivastava Sahab, I respect your military knowledge, but you confused morality with rule. Morality is abstract. I did not talk of moralism. I was talking of rule-based order, written rules. And as a military man, you should know that. You should. You are a disciplined man. You should
as a
respect
military
rules.
man. I have
Yes,
not
so
seen
you should
any rule.
respect rules.
Which rule I have
Respect
seen?
rules and treaties. What are you defending then?
Nations
No,
warring,
not
I have not
defending.
seen
Yes,
any
sir.
rule. I have seen only
NATO-
one rule. I
sir,
have to safeguard
Can I just
my
point out one thing, sir?
country.
Sir,
No.
That is the
There
only
is no
rule I
more.
know.
I'm talking
Sir,
about
we-
rule-based order. We are not
we-
talking about jungle
One
raj in
point
international community.
Sir, we have to
One
stop
point,
here.
one point.
We have to stop here because we have no more time. So we'll take
Sure.
final,
And I have
final
run out of
remarks.
light.
We'll take
You can
final
see
Sir,
I'm
I
getting-
encourage you to bring
concluding
in
remarks.
peace.
We'll take from everyone. The last concluding remarks.
Yes.
We will discuss NATO in the next meeting, in the next debate.
That's right.
But
Yes.
today, the concluding remarks, Dr. Sri Prakash, Mr. Srivastava, Dr. Giri, and Sabina ma'am, I would like to ask you only one thing. Is there any way out in your mind that could stop this war? Is there any way out that could give some kind of sense to Zelensky, NATO, and European Union, including US, that they come to peace? Concluding remarks from each of you. Dr. Sri Prakash, can you please tell us?
Yes, this can only happen when NATO and Mr. Zelensky and these countries in Europe reassess their view of Russia as a power and the threat to its security, which has made Russia take this action. Like India crossed the border of Kashmir to attack Pakistan recently because there were terrorist attacks in Pathankot and other places. Would you say that India was then, of course, invading another sovereign country called Pakistan, which has always invaded us many times? So, sir, these rules are there, but these rules have been violated many times because the national interest, which Pakistan realizes and which India realizes, they clash. So they fight. There is war. And when there is war, there are some rules that are violated. War cannot be fought in an academic manner. It is not a debate. So we crossed the border. We crossed the border. Why did we cross the border?
What in your opinion could be one step towards end of this war?
Well, asking this question, whom?
Very quickly.
You give only 20 seconds to everyone, otherwise this whole thing will stretch a lot.
No.
This question is very complex.
Zelensky has to revise his position.
But he's not a politician. He doesn't understand. He's a comedian.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
they have to
He's doing the comedy show.
Ukraine
Losing the
might
lives of
change-
everyone in the country, but he's not coming to.
Ukraine has the right to change its president.
But because of the patting of behind his shoulders, he's not thinking of the people of that country.
No.
That's right. That's exactly.
You see, I
Yeah,
can only tell you.
It's
tell you from
the
my point of
opposite.
view.
Zelensky is thinking of his people. He's
No.
staying there. He
I'll tell
hasn't
you.
run away.
I will tell you from my point of view.
Putin can also be removed. Putin can also be removed, not only
See,
Zelensky.
my point of view
Putin
is
should
that
also
if
be
in
removed.
my
Putin
family
has
there
by
are,
his
the
people.
support of Russia.
Sir, 1 second. If in my family there are 20 people and my family is attacked, what would I do? I would say you kill me, but leave my people. But
No,
here the
it's
thing is
an
opposite.
unfair- It's an unfair
The army commander will
attack.
not do it. He will attack it depending on
Sovereign. It's an independent,
Mr.
sovereign
Mr.
country.
P.K. Srivastava, I would like to know from you what is your point of view on this?
You are talking about, actually, DN, your question is very complex and has got many dimensions. So I'll just answer one. We must bring in somehow the peace to this war. It's very important. And if this does not stop, The first phase of war has been for the sake of bringing this fact in mind that the first military objective of NATO not joining is met, which is being met with certain conditions, and let's bring in diplomacy now. If we don't do it in a reasonable time now, the war, and we keep betting the war, but there are side betters from side who are providing ammunition and betting on it. This war can go to an escalated version, which none of us would like to see, because there is a concept of providing the golden bridge to the even the most cornered enemy, whomsoever you think, and that has to be somehow, instead of being thinking about who's right, who's wrong, who's aggressor, who's not aggressor, this is my moral stand, that is my moral stand. Today, whole of the humanity should work, because we are moving towards something which is very, very dangerous. And it can really be so dangerous, you don't know, because we have gone through that process. I know when Parliament attack happened, I was there myself at the center of things. We are providing things, and the military can go haywire. One omission or commission by anybody, it can bring such calamity which none of us want. So let's save ourselves from that situation. Let's put in an end to this, and all warring parties. That today we have a lot of warring parties in this. Putin may be one of the devil we are fighting, but there are many, many of them. Whole of NATO, so many countries, or those who are not there, they are being asked to be party to it. So basically, the world is being ranged against one individual. That is a very dangerous situation. It's a very dangerous situation.
Dr. Giri, Dr. Giri, very quickly, I want to know, is there anybody who can come forward for peace?
Yes, I'll tell you who should bring about the peace, in my estimation. But I want to tell Srivastava one thing is from defense. Srivastava, you should read the memoirs of Churchill. Churchill faced the same dilemma, whether he should give a golden handshake to Hitler and appease Hitler or fight. And he fought.
Sir,
and
I have read.
Wait a minute. You gave an analogy. I'm giving you a historical analogy. And he told his countrymen, we'll fight and go down. Because if we compromise with Hitler, we are creating a world which is not livable for our children. Same dilemma Churchill had faced. You are talking about golden handshake. Churchill was facing the same dilemma. I did not. So, okay.
There is no debate.
Yeah.
Then you want to respond. I don't take it what he said. Because that was in those times. Now times are different. Weapons are different.
Principles never change. Principles never change. Principles never change. Ideas never change.
Principles change as per technology. We are changing doctrine every day.
Democracy, freedom, integrity, humanity are not technology. They are principles which are eternal and universal. But they are eternal and universal. Okay. Now,
आप लोग हैं ना उसके लिए बात करने के लिए.
We will talk about it some other time.
Theory modify तो होती है ना sir.
How do you apply theory? Should India cross the border of POK to attack Pakistan if we are attacked?
Yes, of course.
Because Pakistan is an integral, independent sovereign country.
Retaliation. You see, but Ukraine did not attack Soviet Russia, Baba.
Ukraine attacked the Russians. Ukraine attacked the Russians in Ukraine. Ukraine attacked the Russians in Ukraine.
Sympathy for Russians, but
Giri sir, you think that attack is only hard attack? Then we are living in the world of Churchill.
Hard attack is in various forms. Violation of sovereignty. We are not talking hard, soft attack.
We will do a separate debate on what is an attack and what is not an attack.
Politics, we are talking of violation of sovereignty of the country.
Dr. Giri, to end up the program, last question.
I'll tell you who can stop this war. India and China. It is not in the hands of Westerners. If India and China can persuade their friend, if India and China can persuade their friends, Soviet Putin, that Baba, you are creating a dangerous situation for all of us, you are setting very dangerous ground for invasion all around, then only it can happen. Otherwise,
Dr. Giri, Putin cannot stop this war. Let me tell you.
Who cannot stop this war?
Putin cannot stop this war, I am telling you.
Putin will be animated by his people.
This will be another topic for a debate because I think
US is interesting to discuss with you.
Zelensky was talking about denazification. Do you know Zelensky is a Jew? denazification of Ukraine headed by a Jew. How ridiculous!
Nazis
Okay,
came.
anyway,
Balkan,
Jews
talk
can
about
be
you,
Nazis.
you have to read the history, military history of Ukraine.
Zelensky can
To
stop this.
understand this.
Sir, we
I'm
will
telling
take
you,
up,
Right,
please
let's
go and
end
read
here.
today.
we will take up
Then
this
I can
debate.
have another debate with you on this.
We'll
We
take
can,
up this
yes, you
debate.
please.
We'll take up this
can.
debate in the next episode, and
Yes.
I will end up this show by quoting Mr. Srivastava's two things. One is that he said that US is European countries will start buying oil from countries they are convenient with and whom they had already put sanctions before, and because they are now convenient, having convenient time with them, they will buy from them. And same is the situation in India. If your leaders find that this political party is a good party who can give me good perks and good facilities, they will join that. They will go from here and they will join that. Gathbandhan ki sarkar, we were talking about, you remember, in the last debate. So we will take up this NATO issue and the issue of who can put an end to this war in our next debate. Thank you
No,
all for
sorry,
joining us.
sorry.
Yes,
1 minute,
yes,
1 minute. In
yes.
this argument with the men, I just want to say, I think the war is going to get over very soon, because Putin hasn't been able to get hold of Kiev, and the fact that my reading is that other than France and Turkey and all, I think perhaps India is playing a role in mediation.
Okay.
With all these visits coming with all these high profile visits of leaders from different countries, I think they have to find a way out for Putin to stop the war.
Yes.
That is in India's national interest also. Thank you.
Yes, yes, let's see. But I think that even if the war ends, you are not going to find Ukraine on the map, world map now. There's nothing in Ukraine now.
No,
There is
Srivastava, don't
nothing.
be harsh. No, don't be harsh
कहाँ
about
पर है?
any
यूक्रेन में
country.
तो कुछ भी नहीं
It
है.
may be a
Nothing is
small
there.
country. You can talk about Maldives like the same way. It can go down. We wish that it comes back.
But
You know,
what
think
is
of an
there in
independent
Ukraine
country.
now? People have died. Land has finished. What is there now?
No.
Infrastructure
They will
is
bounce back.
end.
They will bounce back. Putin will come and go. You know, the humanity will remain.
Okay,
The principles will remain.
Let's hope
Yes,
that. But
ideas remain.
next debate we will come up with NATO issue and who can put an end to this war in detail. We will have a debate on this, and thank you all for joining us on this show today. We'll be right back again next week. We'll inform you and come up with a good debate on a good topic again on the Ukraine-Russia war. Thank you all. Good night.
We are not like Arnab Goswami, but talking about war, if we do not have some heat, he does not make it interesting, yeah? Better than Arnab Goswami.
Arnab Goswami, I don't know whether he's a journalist or not. I don't consider him.
No.
Okay, sir. Good night. Thank you all.
Thank you, Savina ji.
Thank
On the good note of, on good ladies note, we'll part it.
Yes.
But
Okay.
I think let me say something now out of the debate.
Yeah.
He
It's
mentioned
over, right? We're off